Imagine walking into a garden and seeing a single hibiscus plant, but instead of one color, it's exploding with red, yellow, pink, and white flowers all at once, blooming from the same trunk, the same roots, the same soil. Most people stop walking. Most people stare. Most people can't even believe it's real. But it is real, and the secret behind it is one of the most satisfying and quietly powerful techniques in all of gardening: hibiscus grafting. And once you understand what's actually happening inside that plant, once you understand the biology and the craft behind it, you will never look at a single color hibiscus the same way again. Let's start at the very beginning, because grafting is not a modern invention. It is ancient. Farmers in China were grafting fruit trees over 3,000 years ago. The Romans grafted olives and grapes. Medieval European orchardists passed grafting techniques down through generations like family secrets, because whoever could grow the most productive and most beautiful plants had power. Economic power, social power, the power of abundance. And the core principle they discovered, the thing that has never changed across thousands of years of human civilization, is deceptively simple. Two plants, if they are close enough genetically, can be joined together. Their vascular systems can fuse, and once they fuse, they function as one organism, the roots of one feeding the branches of another, the strength of one supporting the beauty of another. That is grafting. That is the ancient art that you are about to learn. Now, with hibiscus specifically, the technique becomes something almost magical, because hibiscus belongs to the Malvaceae family and has an unusually cooperative nature when it comes to grafting. The tissue of a hibiscus stem is soft enough to be worked with basic tools, yet resilient enough to heal quickly and form strong unions. The cambium layer, and this is the critical word, the cambium, is the thin green ring of actively dividing cells just beneath the bark of any stem. It is the living engine of the plant. When you graft, you're aligning two cambium layers together from two different stems and asking those cells to recognize each other, to grow together, to become indistinguishable. When they do, the graft succeeds. When they don't, the graft fails. Everything you do in the grafting process is designed to maximize the probability of that cellular handshake happening cleanly and completely. Before you ever pick up a blade, you need to think about rootstock. The rootstock is the base plant, the one whose roots will feed the entire multicolor creation you're building. For hibiscus grafting, the most commonly used rootstock is Hibiscus rosa sinensis, the common Chinese hibiscus, because of its vigorous root system, its disease resistance, its adaptability to a wide range of soil conditions, and critically, its compatibility with nearly every decorative hibiscus variety you might want to graft onto it. A strong rootstock means the grafted scions, the stems carrying your different flower colors, will receive abundant water and nutrients, which means faster healing, stronger growth, and more spectacular flowering. If your rootstock is weak, diseased, or stressed, even perfect grafting technique will give you poor results. So choose your rootstock with the same care you would choose the foundation of a house. It is everything. Your rootstock plant should ideally be at least 1 year old, growing in healthy, well-draining soil, and actively growing at the time of grafting. An actively growing plant has a cambium layer that is hydrated, energized, and far more likely to accept a graft quickly. If the plant has been recently stressed by drought, by overwatering, by repotting, by disease, give it time to recover completely before attempting any grafting work on it. Patience here is not weakness. Patience here is strategy. Now let's talk about the scions, because this is where the color comes from. A scion is a short cutting taken from a donor plant whose flower color you want to add to your rootstock. For a multicolor hibiscus display, you will take scions from multiple different hibiscus varieties. Perhaps a deep crimson from one plant, a bright tropical yellow from another, a soft blush pink from a third, and a pure white from a fourth. Each scion should be about 8 to 12 centimeters long, taken from semi-hardwood growth. Not the brand new soft green tips, which are too fragile, but not old woody brown stems either, which have lost much of their cambial activity. That sweet spot in between, the slightly firm stem with a green or reddish green surface, that is exactly what you want. Each scion should have at least 2 to 3 leaf nodes, and ideally, you should reduce the leaves significantly, cutting large leaves down to about 1/3 of their size, to reduce the water loss that the cutting will experience while its vascular connection to the rootstock is still being established. Timing matters enormously. The best time to graft hibiscus is during the active growing season, spring through early summer in most climates, when temperatures are warm but not extreme, when day length is increasing, and when both rootstock and scion plants are in a state of biological momentum. Grafting in the middle of summer heat stresses the union. Grafting in cool or cold conditions slows healing dramatically and invites fungal infection. Grafting when both plants are actively growing is like trying to start a fire with dry wood rather than wet wood. The conditions simply cooperate. When it comes to the actual technique, There are several grafting methods used for hibiscus, and the choice between them depends on the diameter of your stems and your level of experience. The cleft graft is the most forgiving and the most popular for beginners. You take your rootstock stem, cut it cleanly across with a sharp blade, and then make a vertical split, a cleft, right down the center of the cut surface, about 2 to 3 centimeters deep. Your scion is then cut at its base into a wedge shape, with both sides of the wedge angled to expose the cambium on each face. You slide 1 or 2 scion wedges into the cleft so that their cambium layers align with the cambium of the rootstock on at least one side, preferably both. Then you wrap the union firmly with grafting tape or budding strips to hold everything in compression while healing begins. The wedge graft, also called the splice graft, is favored when your rootstock and scion stems are of similar diameter. Here, instead of splitting the rootstock, you cut it at an angle. A long diagonal cut, and cut the base of your scion at a matching angle so that the two cut surfaces fit together like puzzle pieces, cambium layer to cambium layer, over the longest possible contact area. This creates an extraordinarily strong union when done well, and many experienced grafters prefer it, precisely because the contact surface is larger and more intimate than in a cleft graft. After joining, the union is again wrapped securely and both sides of the junction are covered to prevent dehydration. There's also the approach graft, where rootstock and scion remain connected to their original root systems throughout the healing process, which nearly eliminates the risk of the scion dying from water stress before the union establishes. But this method requires proximity. The donor plant must be close enough to the rootstock to allow physical contact, and is therefore less commonly used in multicolor projects where scions may be coming from plants in different locations. Once your grafts are wrapped and in place, the environment you provide them determines everything. The single greatest enemy of a fresh graft is water loss. The scion, with no functioning roots of its own yet, is entirely dependent on moisture it carries internally, plus whatever diffuses slowly across the healing cambium. This is why many experienced grafters cover fresh grafts with a clear plastic bag, or place the entire plant inside a humidity tent for the first 2 to 3 weeks. The goal is to keep a relative humidity around the graft site extremely high, ideally above 80%, so that the scion does not desiccate before the union can supply it with water. At the same time, you want to keep the plant in bright indirect light rather than direct sun, because direct sunlight raises leaf temperature and dramatically increases water loss through any remaining leaf surface. Think of these first weeks as the intensive care period. Everything is fragile. Everything depends on stillness and consistency. Watch for signs of success with the patience of someone who has learned that rushing in gardening always costs you. The first sign that a graft is taking is the scion remaining, turgid and green rather than wilting and yellowing. Around 10 to 20 days after grafting, you may notice tiny new growth emerging from the buds on your scion, new leaves unfurling, new shoots pushing out, and this is one of the most satisfying sights in horticulture because it means the vascular connection has been made, water, and nutrients are flowing from the rootstock roots up through the healed union and into the scion's tissue. Two plants have become one, the graft has succeeded. Once you have confirmed success, typically 4 to 6 weeks after grafting, once new growth from the scion is robust and established, you can begin removing the grafting tape carefully to prevent it from cutting into the expanding stem. At this stage, you should also be vigilant about any shoots emerging directly from the rootstock itself, below the graft unions. These rootstock shoots, if left in place, will compete vigorously with your grafted scions because they are native to the root system and will tend to dominate. Remove them cleanly as soon as you see them. This is called managing suckers, and it requires consistent attention, particularly in the first season. Every sucker you allow to grow is stealing energy that should be going to your multicolor canopy. Over the following months, the magic compounds. Each of your differently colored scions grows, branches, sets buds, and flowers, and because they are all fed by the same strong rootstock, they often bloom with a vigor that surprises even experienced growers. A 4-variety graft on a healthy rootstock, well tended through its first season, can produce dozens of simultaneous blooms in multiple colors by the following year. The visual effect is genuinely arresting, a single plant that seems to defy the rules of botany, that makes visitors reach for their phones and question what they are seeing. Beyond the spectacle, what multicolor hibiscus grafting teaches you is something profound about plants themselves, that individuality in plants is far less fixed than we imagine. 2 separate organisms, grown from different seeds, carrying different genetics, flowering in different colors, can be persuaded to forget their separateness at the cellular level and build a shared life together. The cambium does not care about color. It cares about compatibility, about alignment, about the right conditions for growth. And when those conditions are met, it reaches across the cut surface and builds something new. something neither plant could have become alone. That is the real lesson of grafting. Not just a gardening technique, but a demonstration of what becomes possible when the right things are brought together under the right conditions and given the time they need to heal.